With reaction, Congressman Jim Jordan, ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. Congressman, let's start on the border issue. Then we're going to get back to what else is cooking. But, I mean, we're going to talk about this later. But this is a national travesty. And the Democrats will say, oh, it's not bad at all on the border. It's interceptions of people are down. There are fewer people crossing. What's the real truth?
You just heard from the agents on the border talking about how bad it is. Even the New York Times talk about the 70-some thousand just this month alone crossing the border. So I always say, if what are we on, the 5th caravan? What do we need, a 6th caravan, 7th caravan, an endless caravan before we say it's an emergency? The president is right. And some of the Republicans who are opposing the president, as you said in your opening, in your Ingram angle, some of those are the same ones who last year during the Congress didn't want to get it done when we had the majority in both the House and the Senate. So this is something that's looks like the Senate's going to vote to overrule the president's order, but when the president vetoes it, it comes back for a veto, we'll be able to sustain his veto.
Mitch McConnell could have pushed this. He could have demanded his
we should have done
members.
It on the omnibus. We should have done it last Congress.
But they promised the president you're going to get your wall funding. Just get us through this period. Isn't that always a little carrot you dangle in front of someone?
Right. We'll get it later. There's always a million reasons why you shouldn't do what you said you would do. Most importantly, what the voters elected you to do. But this president is keeping his word and doing what he said, and that's why the American people like him. And that's why this town doesn't like him.
Your advice to him in this moment, we're going to get into the impeachment squad. People think, oh, we got him. The walls are closing around him. We got these subpoenas issued. Ivanka, Jared, some weird Russians I've never heard of. Like all these, they're all named, and the 81 people. What should the president do this is swirling around?
Just keep doing his job. I was back home Friday night. We had a Lincoln Day dinner I spoke at, and the crowd was huge, and they were so enthusiastic for the president fighting for what he told the American people to do. You know what's interesting, too, about these 81 letters that Mr. Nadler sent? What's interesting is who he didn't send them to. He didn't send all these people, 81 different entities, over 60 different people, but he didn't send it to the two most important, Glenn Simpson and Christopher Steele. Glenn Simpson, who was paid by the Clintons to put the dossier together, and who did he do? He hired Christopher Steele, a foreigner, to write the dossier that was the basis of all.
That's the list of all the people, by the way.
All those people, but not the two that count the most. And so, look, they started their impeachment effort last Wednesday. They started their impeachment last Wednesday with Michael Cohen. And Michael Cohen, their first announced witness of the 116th Congress, a guy who's going to prison in 2 months for lying to Congress, came in last Wednesday and did what?
That's their ace in the hole.
Came in last Wednesday and did what? Lied 6 times under oath. And that's why we sent a criminal referral letter to the Attorney General.
Well, I mean, Bill Barr has got to act on this. I'm sorry, Bill Barr could act on this. Could Bill Barr reopen the investigation into Mrs. Clinton?
He could.
Should he?
What he should do is tell us what John Huber's doing, what Michael Horowitz is doing, what the FISA abuse that they're supposed to be looking into, and this whole idea that you had the top people at the FBI, Comey, McCabe, Baker, Strzok, Page, all these people who launched and ran the Clinton investigation and then launched and ran the Trump-Russia investigations, they've all been fired or left the FBI. 2 are under investigation. That's where we need to look.
But there's plenty of collusion here.
Yeah,
but right, but what about Tony Podesta? Why does he seem to be able to get away with so much activity with Russia?
Crazy. We've talked about this before, and you've been great on this double standard. One set of rules for us regular folk, a different set of...
But now we have a new Attorney General in place who could take a sober, dispassionate look. No one's looking to put scalps on the wall. But if this is what we're going to be dealing with, like on the other side, at least people should have a clear sense of what happened before this, correct?
Right. Go back and look at this fundamental fact. The Clinton campaign paid the law firm Perkins Coie, who hired Glenn Simpson, who then went and hired a foreigner, Christopher Steele, who talked to a couple Russians, never went to Russia, put together this fake document called the dossier that the FBI used. Comey, McCabe, and all these people used, Strzok and Page used, to go to a secret court to get a warrant to spy on the Trump campaign. And that's what launched it all. And now we got 81 letters going to people, but none of them are going to the guys that count the most, Christopher Steele and Glenn Simpson.
I think everyone who signed those FISA warrants, those applications to the court, not revealing that it was Hillary Clinton who paid for them. That still sticks in my craw.
Here's the other thing we have. We got competing testimony. We got McCabe saying one thing, Comey saying something else, Strzok saying one thing. This is why we need to look at this issue.
Nobody pays, though. This is what drives people crazy.
It does.
We have a new Attorney General who is a consummate professional.
We're going to talk to him about these things.
And you are in the process of talking to him about all of this?
We are.
And I know they'll say, oh, that's looking backward. We want to look forward. No, this is the rule of law.
The rule of law. Equal treatment under the law, most importantly.
Congressman, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Between House Democrats as they battled over how to condemn what many saw as anti-Semitism from their freshman member, Ilhan Omar. Her supporters appear to have won here tonight, leading to an 8-page resolution that threw in every kind of hate you could imagine, practically. An official proclamation that, if you didn't realize it, hate is bad. In a moment reminiscent of the debate over Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter, it seems in this case they went with all hate matters. And those who wanted her to be called out for anti-Semitism are not getting what they wanted tonight. So they produced a document that condemns anti-Semitism, anti-Islamic acts, white supremacists, citing many of the recent horrific crimes that we've seen, but also reaches back to a cornucopia of hate that would appear to many to have been long agreed upon, such as the incarceration of Americans of Japanese descent during World War II, the loyalty of President John F. Kennedy being questioned because of his Catholic faith, the Dreyfus Affair, and Muslim bigotry post 9/11. So this document is 8 pages. You can see now how actual legislation often turns out to be 5,000, 10,000 pages at times, and perhaps why Congress has an approval rating of 18%. Something to think about tonight. Earlier, I spoke with former Connecticut Senator and Vice Presidential candidate Joe Lieberman, who's been very outspoken on all of this, and asked him if we really need a resolution to say that we all agree that hate is bad.
I read the resolution, and it reminds me of the old line that a camel is a horse designed by a committee. So this is a resolution drafted by a caucus. So it started out being a resolution to condemn anti-Semitism because of the anti-Semitic remarks made by Congresswoman Omar. Yeah. Her name is left out, and now...
Do you agree with that her name is left out?
I don't. I mean, I think this resolution, as it's passed, though it's a bit of a hodgepodge, nonetheless is a statement against all forms of hatred. As your introduction said, it went way back to the Dreyfus Affair and John F. Kennedy's Catholicism, etc. But okay, let's say it's a basic statement against hatred. But really what the House of Representatives still has to do, and it didn't do today, is to call out and hold accountable Congresswoman Omar for the anti-Semitic comments it made. This is the way, look, what people in public life say matters, and if the House of Representatives doesn't deal specifically in response to what Congresswoman Omar said, it's going to give a message to other people in Congress the next time they want to get up and say something racist or homophobic or against another religion. So I think they only did part of the job today.
I mean, a resolution doesn't have much teeth anyway. It just says, here's something we all agree on. So when you have a resolution that doesn't even call out the behavior that you discuss, it seems like it has even less grit to it. CAIR, the Council on American Islamic Relations, has just put out this statement. Unfortunately, this resolution was introduced to silence legitimate criticism of domestic support for the discriminatory and segregationist policies of a foreign government that received billions of American taxpayer dollars. What do you say to that, Senator?
Well, that's just not true. Fortunately, in my opinion, there is broad bipartisan support for a strong U.S.-Israel relationship and for our fellow democracy, Israel. Occasionally, there are people who object to specific Israeli policies. That's appropriate in our democracy. What Congresswoman Omar said was not just a reasoned disagreement with the policies of the Israeli government. It was just plain anti-Semitic, going back to raising questions of dual loyalty, of Jewish money. It's deeply offensive. I mean, I always say to people when I speak that, I feel blessed to have been born in America, and I love this country. That is the typical reaction of American Jews. A lot of American Jews and Christians also profoundly support Israel, but that's not at all in conflict with our devotion first to America.
You know, it seemed at first she was conciliatory in response to the first round of comments, but now she's not. She's pushing back, and I think you could make an argument, looking at this resolution, that she won that battle. And James Clyburn said this, which I want to see what you think about. He said, there are people who tell me, well, my parents are Holocaust survivors. My parents did this. It's more personal with her. I've talked to her. I can tell you she is living through a lot of pain. So he's referring to her background as a Somali, born in Somalia, who lived in a Kenyan refugee camp. What do you make of that comment?
Well, I'm surprised. I know Jim Clyburn. He's a fine person. I'm surprised he said that. First off, I can tell you, to be really personal about this, my wife, Hadassah, is the child of survivors. She grew up in a household where her mother, who was in Auschwitz, screamed out in the middle of her sleep at night because of nightmares about what she went through. I'm sure Congresswoman Omar went through some hell in Somalia, but it's no excuse for coming here, getting elected to Congress, having the special responsibility that goes with being a member of Congress in our democracy, and making anti-Semitic statements. She really ought to be criticized for it by her colleagues in the House so it doesn't happen again, not just against Jews, but against any group in our
I mean, there is a line in here that rejects the perpetuation of anti-Semitic stereotypes, including the pernicious myth of dual loyalty and foreign allegiance, but it does not name her, as we said. When you look at what's happening in Europe and you look at the rise of anti-Semitism and hate crimes that we've seen here in the United States, and you see that this group in your party in the House that is getting together around some of these ideas, how much does that concern you?
Well, it concerns me a lot. I mean, look, it's hard to believe that anti-Semitism is beginning to express itself in Europe and in some ways in America. The kind of statements that Congresswoman Omar made, which are anti-Semitic, do not reflect the rank and file of the Democratic Party. But if people in the Democratic Party don't stand up respectfully and hold her accountable for her anti-Semitic remarks, then others are going to feel they can do the same, or they can take on other groups, religious, racial, or anything else, with hatred. And that undercuts the unity that has always been the great strength of America.
Senator Lieberman, thank you very much, sir. Good to have you with us tonight.
Thanks, Martha. Thank you.